in this case. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk in general about how to use Excel as a tool, but we're not going to go over the real simple, what I call basic, which is, basic functions of adding and subtracting and how to, the difference between an absolute cell and a relative cell. I guess we could go over some of that, but the thought is I'll go over some of the more advanced stuff and talk a little bit about how you might use it in an application. And then, at the end, if I haven't covered something you're interested in, then, we'll go through that. But the point is that Excel is probably the most powerful tool we have. I mean, I think that ProModel is a great tool because, you can do a lot of stochastic modeling and stuff, but there's a lot of analysis capability within Excel. And in fact, you can do a lot of modeling kind of things using Excel as well. So from the standpoint of, for us, it's good not only because it's a good tool for analysis, but it's also a good collaborative tool. You can create a spreadsheet model, which I've done for a couple clients, and we can sit in a room and we can change things in the spreadsheet, and we can see what the effect would be on their overall costs or cash flow or present value or whatever it is. So if you're going to learn a tool, this is a great tool to learn. And like anything else, the more aspects of it you can use, the more powerful it is, and the easier it is to use. So I'm going to just kind of try to go through some of the different ways that I've used it, and we'll go from there. So I put together kind of an outline. This is the same outline I used when I gave this class for the Wyman products last year. And so we'll just kind of go down through this, and I have some things. So the first part of it's really about functions and formulas. And then we'll go over named ranges, conditional formatting, macros, the use of pivot tables, lists, and the use of comments. And then what we did with them, and I can certainly do here, is have like a clinic where they'd ask me specific questions on how to do something, and we could just kind of talk about it.
Well, I would imagine this would be considered a basic function that we're not going to cover because it's not listed, but filtering?
Filtering? Yeah, actually that's part of tables or lists.
Okay.
So we will kind of cover that.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So why don't we start with functions and formulas? So there are some general rules for math functions that you may or may not know. And if we go to Excel here, I think they're in the help. If you had the book, there's a general book, but there are using equations, sigma formula. Here we go. There are different operators that are in Excel. And there's actually some general rules. Let's see if they have it down here. Yeah, here we go. Calculation order. There's a certain rule at which calculations are done. And it does a pretty poor job here explaining them. But in calculations, you always do plus and minus. You always do anything in parentheses will go together first. And multiplication and division go next, and then adding and subtracting go last. So if you can imagine a formula, 1 plus 2 times 3, it's going to be 2 times 3 first, and then add the 1 to it. Got that?
Mm-hmm.
So that's just kind of a general rule of when you do formulas. And if you're not sure, you can always put things in parentheses. So if you go 1 plus beginning parenthesis 2 times 3 end parenthesis, then you know the 2 times 3 would be done first because it's within parentheses. Yeah, I'm showing. Oh, I'm not showing my screen.
No.
How's that?
Well, that doesn't really help you at all, does it?
No.
Okay. Can you see my screen now? Hold on.
Yeah, I got it.
Hi, Mark.
Hey, sorry, I'm back.
It's okay. I'm going to join you.
Thank you.
All right, Mark's back. You all there?
Yeah, I don't know if Steven's back.
I am.
Okay,
Oh,
see.
you are. Okay.
All right, so basically we're gonna go over the use of formulas. So the first thing I said is a general rule: when you do formulas, they're done. If you go in here under math rules, if you have an Excel booklet, they always go through these, but there's a specific sequence to how operators are used in formulas. Okay, so if you look at the precedence here, it always goes from left to right, and it always does. Does it have these in the right sequence here? Yeah, so like this is an example of using parentheses. I don't know if you can see my screen. But if you use parentheses, we'll always do what's in parentheses first. So in this case, if you go 5 plus 2 times 3, it typically always does multiplication and division before it does adding and subtracting. So this would take 5 plus, and it would be 6, which would be 11. But if you go down here and you use parentheses and you really want to do 5 plus 2 times 3, then it allows you to add those up before you multiply them. So anyway, so you guys are all aware of this general rule?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so we're good with that. All right. And of course, I just going to say at the beginning, there's lots of different ways to get into the help. So if you're trying to do a formula, like let's say this is the SUMIF formula here, by clicking on the formula, let's say if I start doing a formula like sum, it's going to show me all the different ones. If I hit the tab button, it will fill that in, and then you can see it tells me what the what the different things to fill in are. So for SUMIF, it's going to be the range, then the criteria, then the range that you're trying to sum up. So and if that's still puzzling, you can also go in and you can do an F1 always, and F1 is always a way to get to help. Or you can also go up here, if you're not even sure, you can always go up to the toolbar up here where you see the function editor, and it'll also bring up all the different functions. Again, pretty basic stuff. You probably know all that already, but I feel like I must mention it. So my general strategy for building formulas are, whenever I build a formula, is identify what the purpose of the formula is and what the units are, because that tells me usually what information I'm going to need. Then I identify the information that will be required, identify the variables, and if I'm going to be using a spreadsheet, identify where in the spreadsheet those variables are. And then what I like to do is I like to calculate it manually to make sure that it makes sense. You do the manual calculation and you say, gee, that doesn't make any sense. The guy would be going 500 miles an hour. Then you can check to see that maybe the numbers you're using are incorrect or the formula you're trying to use is incorrect. Then what I typically do is I have my own inventory myself of formulas that I use, and I identify what formulas can I use to actually do this calculation. Whether I'm trying to I have to use rounded up numbers or truncated numbers, or I have to pull information out of text that I'm going to use. And then what I'll sometimes do is I'll break the formula up into chunks. So I'll do an initial column, which will be the first calculation, and I'll do the second column, which will be a second calculation, and I'll do multiple columns. I'll show you an example of this in a minute, but I'll do it in steps to come up with the final calculation, rather than try to build them all into one big formula. And then at the end, I'll go ahead and put it all together and put in the calculation. And then what I suggest to people is they try it. They try a few different variables to see if the answers make sense. And of course, the more you use the formulas, the less likely you are to have problems. There's lots of different kinds of functions that are available, and I don't know what you guys think, but there's this whole new menu system for Excel 2007. How do you guys like the new menu?
And to be honest, it's been a little bit of a battle for me. I'm kind of getting used to it now, but
I think the more you use it, the better it gets. But when you first start, it's a little different.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, especially if you're used to using the old menu. Very difficult.
it took me a little while to find what I normally use. But after that, it's been pretty nice.
Well,
Right.
and you know that you can customize your main toolbar on the top to, if there's functions that you use a lot, like, say, naming ranges for print, instead of having to figure out where it's at, you can actually just add it to your very top toolbar.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I still haven't got to
But
that point yet.
well, you know, but does everybody else know?
Does everybody else know that?
I've added a hot button top of mine for printing and stuff like that. I've done that already.
Yeah.
But where the little save is up at the top, I've added a hot button for print things quickly and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, so the hardest thing was this new Office button. There's a lot of stuff under here that didn't used to be in here.
These being our tools, I think.
What?
Isn't the tools gone? There used to be a tools heading that you click on and pull down a lot of stuff, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Doesn't been that little circle on the top left now.
Yeah, my mother-in-law called me because she was trying to print something out and she couldn't figure out how to print it out. Because there's no place here. If you look all over, there's no print. You know, you have to go to the circle. But
You want to show them how to add, like, the print hot button? No? I mean, because this applies to any of the Microsoft stuff we're doing.
I imagine all you're going to do is go to print, and then you're going to drag it. Would be my guess. Is that how you do
You
it?
go up to your little icon.
Well, give her control. Let her
A little, yeah, why don't you give me control?
All right.
the sidebar from Excel. Now we're doing window screen.
But this is actually ribbon training. Okay. All right. You now take control. All right. So I'm going to open this up. Boy, how come it's so small?
You can maximize the window on your.
I have to.
Probably because your resolution is.
My resolution is junk. Okay, because you see what's happening. I can't get.
Right, you can't see it. I don't think. So what do you just tell me what to do? Because I think that's one of the problems with GoTo is it will not open up this part of the.
Okay, what you're going to do, whatever program you're in, it can be Word, it can be Excel, the icon, the Windows icon that's in your left-hand corner, you're going to click on it.
Yeah.
And you're going to go all the way down to the bottom bar that's going to say Excel options, Word options, whatever the options are. When you open that up, you're going to see customize in the left-hand corner. There's like 8 things, but you're going to go to customize. And now all of a sudden, you're going to get every command that you're able to do. If you find one you use a lot, like print or name the range, you just find it, you click on it, and you add it to your quick access toolbar, and it will put it right at the top of your screen.
That's my good thing. Highlight that, hit add.
Hit add and say OK. Then you've created your own custom toolbar.
Nice. All right.
And again, that's for Word, PowerPoint, Excel.
All right. Yeah, the things that I use in here, you'll notice that Excel has a number of different ways you can save. And, for clients, I always save in the Excel 97 2003 workbook format. Unless it's a large spreadsheet that has a requirement of over 64,000 lines, which I actually have a few of those right now with Case New Holland and Joan Stevens. With those, you have to save it as a regular Excel workbook. But you can see you can primarily just save as an Excel 97.
Well, are there any new functions in Excel, in this version of Excel, that would not be compatible to save?
Yes.
I mean, because I know sometimes we've come across colors, but that's not a big deal.
Yeah, there are other functions, and there's also different types of conditional formatting you can use now, where you can use color scales and data bars. Like you can actually set up like a a dashboard for things. There's different icons you can bring up, like a green light, yellow light, red light icon where it's conditional. The green light is everything less than 10, and a red light is everything greater than 50, and everything else is yellow. So you can set up different icons to allow you to create a dashboard. And you can't do any of that stuff in the older version of Excel.
So in other words, if you had used those, you could not save it to an old 9703 thingy.
Right.
And the thing with a lot of there's many new templates in this new version that I'm sure that if you used, you couldn't save.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so that's how I would make a formula. Now, there's different types of formulas, and what I suggest is, if you're interested in learning about formulas, is you go through each one and there's financial formulas. There's all kinds of different net present value, which is good if you're trying to do financial calculations. You can do internal rate of return calculations. I'm sure you guys do these all the time, right?
Every minute.
Yeah. Well, I have done them actually, present value and internal rate of returns. I've done those when we're looking at financial and we're trying to compare two different options, and what you want, if it's an investment, you want to make it the lowest present value. If it's a savings, you want to make it the highest present value, because there's a time value of money, and you can put an interest rate and stuff, and you can calculate stuff like that. And logical, that's where you're getting into formulas. We're going to go through a few of those. I use the if a lot. Text I use a lot if I'm going to take a database that somebody's created and try to use descriptions as a filter, for example. Date and time, I use these sometimes. I think I've used them in like the delay spreadsheet that I did, where you're taking a number that looks like a time and you're converting it to a time. I have an automatic Gantt. I think I did it for the automatic Gantt chart example that's in this document we're looking at here. I use the lookup and references a lot, especially the VLOOKUP, and we can go through that later on. Math and trig. I guess I primarily use the round up, round down, the max and the min. Of course, everybody uses the sum. And did you know that if, I didn't know this for a while, but if you highlight a number of things, if you look at the bottom there, you see there's actually a place where it tells you the sum of the numbers and the count, and also the average. So I know clients that do that. They'll take, and I'll be like, oh yeah, that's, well, that's a huge number. But they'd take these and say, oh yeah, it's 9.7, without doing the adding, the sum. And it's because they're looking at the bottom here, they can see what the average is and the sum and all that. I think it's kind of a nice little thing.
Average is very accurate.
Yeah, it's very accurate. And then there's a number of other things too. Now, sometimes you can't get all the functions unless you put on the, there's like a data pack you used to have to put in. It's like an analysis pack.
An add-on? So would that be an add-on?
I'm not sure if it's an add-on or not. When you install, you can say you want it.
The analysis tool pack you're talking about?
Yeah, the analysis tool pack. So, and there's a whole bunch of statistical analyses here. I do use a few of them, like the COUNTIF and stuff. I've never used the engineering one, or the cube one, or the information one. Actually, I think have used like the is error and is blank before, but it's kind of unusual. But the point is, if you're if you're trying to do a formula, the more of these that you try out. Sometimes I'll try a new formula, just or a function, just because I want to get used to using it. So if we go through some of the examples here, like here's some typical math ones. You have your regular sum, summing things up, but you can build a table like using SUMIF. And basically what SUMIF does is it uses a criteria. So if you have a table, this is your table, you always have to include the headers. Well, no, you don't. Not for a SUMIF. I don't think. No, for SUMIF you don't. So basically you just include the range with the columns that you want to key off of or that you want to sum. And then the formula basically is if equals SUMIF, and you put in the names and then the criteria. So whatever's in this column, it looks and matches whatever's in wherever you're pointing it at. In my formula, I look at the column to the left. And then what you want to sum is what column that's in. So we used to use this at AFCA when Mark and I was there. We used it if we wanted to total up the number of hours someone was working, the total number of hours for a week. It would go down through and find all the references to that person, and at the bottom it would total it up. And that way we knew we never had someone, like 60 hours a week, busy. We try to keep it down, to balance it out, so it was always like 40, 45. So have any of you used this formula before, SUMIF?
Yeah, I think I used it.
Yeah.
I probably have done it.
So it's a nice way. I also use this for Wyman Products because they were doing a human resource spreadsheet, and they wanted to be able to add up the total number of hours for certain people. So you can change these numbers to whatever you want, and it will adjust the totals. This is a variation called COUNTIF, and it's going to count up any items that match. So for Bob, for example, how many references of Bob? So in that case, you don't need to know where you're going to count up because it's just counting. Like this one here, you had to know what numbers to sum, but since you're not summing up numbers, you're just counting how many times it occurs. The only thing you need in this one is you need the column that has the information that you're looking at, and you need to have a criteria range, which again in this case is just the column to the left. Now if you wanted to do your own average for each one, you could just take the SUMIF and divide it by the COUNTIF, and that would also give you the average. Right, so you want to know the average number of hours that Bob worked, let's say. This would be how many, and we're using the same numbers. This would be the total number of hours. These would be the number of days, so that would be the hours per day over those days.
Why did you put a little plus in front of the B14?
B14.
Check out in 3.5, the calculation for the average hours.
Here?
What's a little positive sign for?
It's extraneous. You don't need it.
Okay. What if you had a negative number and you put let's say that Bob was -7 and you put a plus there, would it change it to a positive or? Okay.
Put a negative in there, it's a negative.
I see. Okay.
I don't think you can. Well, I suppose you could do that too. It's somewhat tolerant, but the equal signs tells that it's a formula.
Yeah, I understand what equal was.
Yeah. Now, if you're doing weighted averages, a good formula uses sum product. So here's how you do a weighted average. So if you're doing a decision matrix and you have different weightings on different values, and so you can put the weightings, or you can put the values here and what weight you want to give them. And then what you'd have to do in the old days, I suppose, before this, is multiply each one of these out and then add them up. But with this formula here, you can just say, I want to sum up all the numbers in this column, and as they correspond to the numbers in this column, and I want to multiply them and add them together, and that's the sum product. And again, I use that if I'm doing a decision matrix where let's say I have 6 different key characteristics, and each one has a different weighting factor depending upon how important it is. And then I rate each option. We did a newsletter article on this, but you weight each option by how well it fits, good or bad, and then it will give you a score at the bottom to tell you, based on the weightings, what the overall score would be. And then the higher or lower score is the one that wins, And down here, for some reason, I've got network days. This is an example of a date formula. It'll tell you how many work days there are between 2 dates. So I just have the date of December 25th and the beginning date of October 31st, and it tells you how many work days occur between those days. In this case, 40 hours. Or 40
Take out
days.
holidays and weekends, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it takes out the weekends.
Okay, just weekends? Okay.
Yep. And then there's, of course, other things like absolute value numbers, ABS. If you take anything in parentheses, so if I took this and I made it absolute ABS, then no matter what it is, it's going to be a positive number. Now imagine let's say you couldn't have negative numbers, and so if it was a negative number, you wanted it to be 0. How would you do that? What kind of formula might you use to do that?
A conditional statement with the ifs?
Yeah, you could do an if statement. You could also use a max formula and say, I want the maximum of 0, or whatever the end of this formula or the formula is. And that way, if the formula is less than 0, then it would give you 0. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Now, I used to use a formula called round a lot, but there's other formulas now that do a better job. One of them is called ceiling. And what ceiling will do is you can create a value of significance. So like it always rounds up. That's why it's called ceiling. The other one's called floor, and that rounds down. So if my time was 1.3, I'm at a 1 minute significance, then it'll always round up to the next minute. So it would be 2 minutes. If I had a number of 251, and I always go with 750 as my unit, and I always have to round up. It's going to go to the next one. So let's say my unit was 500 here, then it's going to round up to the nearest 500 unit, which is 1,000. So yeah, so I've used this before where, let's say you're doing a storage analysis, and you always have to have full pallet quantities, and a pallet quantity is, let's say, 25, then this always rounds it up to the next full pallet quantity, And you can put in whatever unit you want. If a basic round would use just 1. You could also make it a small number, like this is 5/100ths. So you have a time and you want to put it in the nearest 5/100ths, it will round it up to the next 5/100ths. There's also a round down, which is called floor, and it basically does the same thing, but in reverse. So 1.2 significance is 0.5, it's going to round it down to 1. Anyway, any questions on that formula? Okay. All right, these are statistical formulas, and statistical formulas tend to have there's different ones I use, like frequencies. So let's say we have, these are our numbers, and we want to create a histogram to graph these out. But rather than show every individual number, we want to put them into a histogram of a range of values. So what we can do is a frequency formula, and these are different. What you do is you identify bins, and a bin location is from 0. This first one is always from 0 to this number, and then from that number to this number, and it goes up, and then basically what you do is, so you're defining the top of each bin size. And basically the way the formula works is this is a frequency formula, so it's frequency, and you put in the numbers that you want in your histogram, and then you put in the bin locations. So in this case, these are the numbers I want to look at. And the bin locations are 1, 79, and 80. Well, let's make this 50, for example. And then what this does is it says, well, how many are in 0 to 1? 0 of them. How many are in from 2 to 50? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so it says there are 5 in that range. And so you can create different ranges, and you can create this histogram. Now, why am I showing this formula? Because this formula uses a special kind of formula. If you see, the actual formula goes over multiple cells. Let's see, what the heck is a name for that? I can't remember. This isn't going to tell me. It's a special kind of, I can't remember what the name of the gosh darn type of formula is, but you can see if you try to type in the formula frequency, so if I go equal frequency, and I put in the range, and I put in the bins, all it gives me is the first cell, or the first part of the frequency. It doesn't give them all to me. Do you see that? The only way to get all of them in this kind of formula is what you do is you type in the formula, then you highlight the bins. In this case, you have to have 4 of them. It's always one more than the number of bins you've selected, because you always have to have a bin for everything that's over the last bin you selected. So anything over 80 would be in the last one. So you highlight the range, you hit F2, and you have to hit Shift, Control, Enter. And voila, it's now it now finishes it. So now everything that's in here, all these cells are part of that formula. And let's see if I have the name of it here. It tells you how to do it if you come down here. It's entered as an array formula. These are called array formulas. After copying the example to a blank worksheet, select the range, press F2, and then press Control, Shift, Enter. Isn't that really intuitive? Sure. Alright, so when would you use that? Well, let's imagine you had some numbers here. Well, let's not make them. Let's Mark, Robin, Bill, Pat, Monica, Aaron, Shannon. Alright. And let's say you want to enter them like this, but you want them to be transposed. You want to transpose them so that they go across the top, even though when you, in the spreadsheet, whatever you're using, they're like this. So one way to do it would be to do a formula where you do this, right? And then you have to go like that. Just like that. You know how you would do that? Okay, the other way is to use the transpose formula. So it's equals transpose, and then you pick the array and hit enter. Well, I hit it, but I didn't hit it as array. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I hit F2, and voila. So if I change this to Monica, and Bill, and Aaron, and Mark, you can see how they're linked. So if you were doing like a from to drawing where you're going from Steve to Monica, or you could do all your if you wanted your rows and your column headers to be the same, this would be one way to do it. Alright? And of course there's always the max formula and the min formula. You've probably used those before. There's also an average formula. And then this is a formula I use a lot. I use max a lot if I'm going to do if I want to number lines, but I want to have to keep numbering them, and I don't want to number blank rows, then I use this formula. And basically the formula just says if if the row to, the cell to the right of me is blank, then make me blank. Otherwise, take the maximum value of everything that's above me plus 1. So if you go down this, so for this particular cell I6, what I've done is I've anchored the first part of the formula. So all it says is if there's something here, take the most of everything that's up here and add 1 to it. And so what that means is if I take out lines, it automatically renumbers everything. Isn't that nice? So I don't have to worry about renumbering lines. So just another little creative way of using the formulas to number lines and stuff. All right? Any questions on that? Nope. All right. Here's another formula I use a lot, if. And I like to use it to add up numbers and give me totals. So let's say I have a list here, and I want to total up how many hours Bill worked. And so my formula here is if I look at the name here and I say if that name is the same as the name before it, then I want to take, oh look, we even have, if it's greater than 2. Isn't then if C is greater than 2, and C5 plus D4. Alright, so I don't know why the heck I did that. Let's just do a simple formula.
No, we're waiting until they find out when they're going to bid it. So they get the addendum 1, because there is no addendum 1, so they have to pre-bid.
Okay, I thought you were going to do that this morning during the year.
They didn't do it. This way. I won't.
So basically the way this formula works is it just says, I look at the hours here, or I look at the name here and the name above it. If they're the same, then I take this number and I add it to the number above me. Otherwise I just take the number to the above me. So what happens is it gives me a cumulative number of hours until I reach the next one, right? And then it sees, oh, that's not the same as the one above, so it starts again at 1 and adds them up. And then I go the opposite way when I do the totals column. I say, well, if this right here is not the same as this, the one below it, then go ahead and take this value here. Otherwise, go, and don't put anything there. So can you see how that works? Okay. And then this is an example of using SUMIF. Did I use SUMIF before? Yeah. So you could do the same thing with SUMIF. You could add them up. So you can see, you can do it this way if you wanted to show after the last one, like a subtotal column. So what you'd probably do is you'd hide this, right? It would look like that. But if you didn't want to, and you just wanted the total hours, you didn't want to show a subtotal, you could just do them using the SUMIF command. Now here's some general logic. So if is considered a logic formula. Another one is the or and. And basically the way they work is if an or command has a condition, and then it has what you do if it's a yes. Let's see, is that right? Yeah, that or yes. So it has a condition. So in this case, my condition is if basically G5 is Bill, and if the answer is yes, then I say the value of H2 is going to be 2. Otherwise, make I5 equal to yes. Is that right? Or Bill this. Oh, yeah, okay. All right, I'm sorry. Here's what the deal is. The formula is, this can let you look at multiple things. In this case, you can look at 3 values. So it's if or either Bill either this column is Bill, or this column's 2, or this is yes. And if any of those are true, then the condition is yes, which means put a yes here. Otherwise, put a no. You see what it's doing? So I can put an infinite number of conditions here using the OR command, and then I can put in, by using it, and that will just give me a 1 or 0. If any of them are true, it gives me a 1. And if any of them are, or if all of them are false, it will give me a 0. And by embedding that into an if statement, I can basically use this to check multiple columns, and if certain conditions are true, it will go to one value versus the other. Again, the point here is that it's a filter. It's a way to say I only want to look at things that have these certain conditions, and that's how it will give you this. And so that's an OR. The other command is an AND. And basically, the AND is all of them have to be true. So if this is Bill, and this is a 2, and this is a yes, then yes. But let's say this is a 1. Well, then now that's a no, because not all of them are true. Whereas up
This
here,
works much in the same way as the criteria in, like, the Access database.
yes.
Like an incoming call.
Okay. Yeah, it does work a lot like your criteria. So the reason why I would use this is because you could use an if statement with multiple nests. Like you could say, if this, then this, else if this, then this, else if this, then this, else if this. You could do that. Or you can just use an OR. And an OR just says, if all these are true, then go this way. Or if one of them is true, then go this way. It's just a way for you to look at multiple conditions to determine what your calculation is going to be. It's just a more elegant way of doing it than using ifs. Any questions on that? Yeah, the thing is, unless you have a specific application for using it right now, you won't get much out of it. But just to remember that you can do this kind of stuff, I think, is the point. Because if you're doing a spreadsheet and you have the option, you have options on how you're going to do the spreadsheet, you might say, well, gee, I got 3 different conditions. I want to be able to, this formula changes depending upon what's in the other columns. This would be an easier way for you to do that formula than to try to do multiple columns and things. So just to know that you can do this, I think, is the point.
Well, I think that's the biggest thing in any single solitary program, and I've always, when I have taught Word or, learning a new program, is you're 100% right. If you're not using it on a daily basis, you're not going to be proficient, but as long as you know it exists, if you have the application, you can go and look for it.
Yep, that's the point. It's recognizing that there are certain ways you could do it. Even if you can't remember exactly how to do it or what the formula is, that's not a problem, because there are lots of ways to get to the formulas in Excel. Going through the help menu, or going through just the general menus and scrolling down. You can go through this, and as you scroll down, it will tell you what it does for you, right? So, all right, another thing that we use, and this actually doesn't come under the formula, is a pivot table. And a pivot table is really nice, because what it lets you do is it's just a really simple way of creating a table out of a list of data. And the pivot tables that are in this version of Excel are a lot easier to use than the previous versions. The previous versions, it was a little less intuitive. But in these, all you have to do is have a range of items that you want to do a pivot table on, and you have to have a unique header on each column. You want to have a unique header, and each one should have a name. So you include the column header and all the data, and you go up to Insert, a Pivot Table, and then it should have highlighted already, but if it hasn't, you can select the range here. And then, well, for our example, we'll just use a new worksheet. And then it has this nice little way now of doing drag and drops. So in our case, we want to create a pivot table and we got Bill, Dave, and we got certain dates. So let's say we want to know by person, so we put that in our row. And we want to know by dates, we want to know how many hours they worked. And so what we've done here is we've dragged the names into the column headers. You can also do it down here. You could move them out, and you can drag them down this way. And then we've put in, what this has done is added them up by date, and it's added them up by person. And one of the things that we can do is we can put in filters. So you can see next to each one of these we can select filters. So for dates, we might say, well, we're only interested in we're only interested in these 3 dates here, and it would just give us those 3 dates. And maybe instead of having a sum of the hours, we want to change that. We want it to be a count of how many hours were submitted. We can click on this under the values, and we can select different options. The count, the average, the max, the min, standard deviations. So if we just wanted a count, for example. Okay. So pivot tables are really nice because they'll automatically, if you have 8 different, like I just did a bill of material for Case New Holland, right? And it had all these parts, and it had all these part numbers, and each one had a different unit quantity and what model it's used on. Well, I can do a pivot table to make each column represent a different model number, and each row represent a different part, and then have a total up the quantity by model. And it will go down and do all
I
that.
should also point out, though, that when you're doing filters on these tables, the filters work a lot like the criteria. You can go in and custom filter and do your ends and your ors and your buts. So if it's a very lengthy table, it's nice that you can custom filter.
Yes. Well, that brings us to lists. So this is a list right here. And so let's say you have a list of things and you want to build a filter them out. So this is just a regular spreadsheet right here, okay? What you can do is you can create what's called a list. And actually, I think it's now called a table. They changed the name of it. I don't know why, but they changed it to tables. And the way it works, again, is you have a header in each column, which you include. You highlight the range, and you go up to Insert Table. And then you say, yeah, I have a headers, and that's the range. It defaults to whatever you highlighted. All right, and now this is a list. And with the list now, you can go to any one of these, and you can use filters. You can do, I want everything that equals Bill, or anything that equals Dave. And it will just give me those items. I can also filter on multiple things. Like you could say, I want a number filter, and it needs to be greater than 5. And now it's giving me, again, it's filtering this column. You can see the little filter here. It equals Bill or Dave, and it's greater than 5. And so this is a way for us to, or we can go back now, we can turn off our filters. So now we've turned it off. So again, this has now become a filter. Now, the nice thing about this is there are other filters where you can hide rows, but the way this works is you can copy and paste it, and those, so you see how it goes 1, 2, 3, 15, 16, 17, 18, 27. If I copy this, or let's actually do all of them here, and I say I just want all the ones that are again greater than 5, let's say, or 5, yeah. Right? It's skipping rows. You can see it goes from 3 to 7 to 8 to 13 to 18 to 20. Well, in the old way they did it, if you copied it, it would copy all those hidden rows. But in this, once
That's
you,
not true.
yeah, it used to.
Hmm.
I think it used to.
No, I used to use this function all the time, and it was a good way for me to like break down information that I needed for another sheet, and I'd always filter and copy.
Huh.
That's how I made that sequence card compound list. I just filtered out the condition which I was looking for, and then, then I copied it and pasted it into another tab. So I sorted it.
Yeah, so this is really handy. And then what you can do then is you can go back, because there are some limitations of what you can do with it once it's in a list. But if you want, you can.
Or can you just filter it? 'Cause I was just filtering.
But Bill, I have to excuse myself. I gotta get to 2:30.
Okay,
All right.
Bye, Mark. Bye, Mark.
bye.
Did you catch that, Bill?
What? Say it again.
My question was, do you have to put it in a list format, or can you just filter something right from the spreadsheet?
As long
Um,
as they have their own, like you said, the unique header, you can filter right from the spreadsheet. It doesn't have to go into a list.
But what does the list do? Just makes it look pretty? And you just go drop down?
so this is a regular list. You're saying you want to filter it without creating a list?
Yeah, and you can filter it without creating a list.
Yeah, you go up here and you go sort and filter.
I
So
was just trying to figure out the difference.
it's not. I think what you've done here is you've actually created a table.
Okay.
Let me see here. Maybe not. Looks like not. Looks like it is a little different. Number filters.
Well, like, go back to another sheet. Go back to, the conditional formatting tab or the database tab, and then run a filter on that without creating a sheet. Or a list, sorry.
Hold on a second. All right, say it again.
So just go back to another sheet where you don't have a list created. Like, go back to conditional. Go back, yeah. Okay, well, let's see. Okay, you could work with, try this. Now go up and just hit filter. See what happens. Or right-click filter.
Filter by what?
I would filter,
Value?
yeah.
Oh, you know the thing. The other one's only apply.
See what I mean?
Yeah, so it's filtered it. So take the filter off now. How would you take the filter off?
Click the filter and see if you have an option there. That.
Oh, clear filter. Huh. And if you wanted, what if you wanted to take off the whole filter completely? Can you?
Like, whole box, the whole range that you had, maybe.
I want to clear the content.
Huh. Yeah,
One-way street.
I'm not sure how to eliminate it once you have it.
Well, that's why you go to help.
Alright, so you guys know how to do this.
Yeah.
I usually don't use filters, but I use the lists. I use the list,
like
but,
them.
you know. And they got all this other goofy stuff now, like you can go into the... Once you are in a list, which I don't think this is a list right now, or a table. So once it's a table, you can do all kinds of funky things to it. You can remove duplicates. I've used that. Where you can highlight a range and you could say remove duplicates. And it'll remove all the duplicate values. You know what I mean? If you want to come up with a unique list. All right, anyway, that's lists. Another type of function is called a database function. In a database function, you have to have a criteria range. So, again, the same kind of thing. You've got a range of data with unique headers. And I use the dsum formula. And basically what you do is the formula is equals dsum. I think there's also like a d count and stuff. And you put in the things that you're comparing to your criteria. So in this case, I'm comparing the name. And then you have to create a criteria range, and the criteria range has to have, or is it the name? Dsum hours. Oh, no, I'm sorry. You're doing the whole range, and then the criteria is for the column that you want to add up or something. So in this case, I want to add up hours, and my criteria range is right here. So if I change my criteria range, let's say to 3, then what it does is it's going to go down and sum up anything that's equal to whatever is my criteria range. So that's all it is. So again, it's just another way of, what was the other one we did? SUMIF. So SUMIF is not a database function, it's a math function. And this is a database function that uses criteria. Now, one of the things I can do is say I want anything that's greater than 3 in here. And so now the criteria is greater than 3. You couldn't do that with the other one. You know what I mean? The other one is just, does it equal that? This one is, you can do like, I don't know if I can do greater than 3 and less than 5. Yeah, but less than 9. Yeah, it doesn't work. Greater than 5. So you can use conditions that are equals 3. You can put in any kinds of conditions you want, and what this does is it finds anything within that condition. Any questions on that? No. And then, of course, you guys know how to link to other spreadsheets. The easiest way is just to have them both open. Just basically hit the plus key, and then it's just like linking to another sheet on the spreadsheet, but now you're on a different spreadsheet. And then what you'll see is it will bring up this, basically, it gives the entire address for the other workbook and the sheet that it's on and the cell. So that's how you would do that.
Like linking. I like linking.
Yeah. And then conditional formatting I've used for like Gantt charts before, where basically what you do is you create a conditional format. This is the only format that's, by the way, supported in the older versions of Excel. It's the you're basically creating a rule based on a condition. So my condition says if the value in the cell is equal to X, then go red. And then the way I have my formula is I say, I'll say if the formula, if this number right here, or this date, is greater than the end date, then I'm already past the date, so I don't put anything here, I'm blank. Otherwise, which means I'm less, then if the next date here is less than or equal to the start date, then I'm also blank because it hasn't started yet. Otherwise, go ahead and put an X. So basically I have a formula. So there's actually an X in this row, but it's a red X, so you can't see it. And then I've used conditional formatting then to say if there's an X there to make it red. So what that means is I could put in here, 112, what is this, 90? 12/12/2005. That can't be 2005. It's 2006. Yeah. So by changing the start and end date, it will automatically change my Gantt chart on the right. If I say, well, I'm really going to start 12.1.06, then you would see the Gantt chart. And then what I can do is I can link them, and I can say, well, that one always starts after the previous one, and like this. And I can say, well, this starts 10.1.06, and it goes to 10.12.06, and this goes to 11.1.06. So now if I change one, then it changes the other one. You see what I'm saying?
I had a question.
Yeah.
How come when I put it, like if I type X in there, obviously it'll change the color of that block.
Yeah.
But with the other ones, when I click on it, there's no X, just says formula. You follow me?
Here,
What's going on?
there's an X there.
Yeah, but you, like I click on any red block, and then it'll say like cell G7, it'll have a formula.
Right.
But, whereas if I just put an X someplace, it'll make, if I put an X at F7, it'll make it red. But there's no formula, it just says X.
There are X's there.
We have a formula and an X though.
So the formula makes the X, and then the conditional formula says if there's an X there, fill me in with red, and you can't see the X.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. And I've used this before with projects where instead of putting the start and end date, I'll put in, let's say, the duration, right? So I'll just say that this date is that plus this. You know, and then I'll put in my rule here. You got to use a formula because that's the only one that's compliant with this. I'm going to do it for this. If that equals X, then I'm going to fill it red. Well, that didn't work, did it? Additional formatting, manage rules, formula. Oh, I just want this to apply to E5. There we go. And then I can copy the rule. Ah! You got the idea. It's not quite working here right. But if I delete the X's, you can see it deletes the conditional formula. It should be copying. So let's try it again here. So the conditional formula, see they changed all this with the new version, so it's edit the rule. Formula values where this formula is true equals X. Formula equals X. Let's just delete all the rules. Clear rules from entire sheet. The rule for this, manage rule, new rule, formula. Formula values equals X. And the format is red. It didn't work, man. It's supposed to work.
Maybe it's just touchy today.
No, I think it's... No. Oh,
Sensitive.
yeah. Formula where this is. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. Format all cells based on their values. See, we can't use any of these. Cell value between duplicate. Use a formula to determine which cells to format. I suppose I could try this, right? Yay. Yay. Okay. So it's something like that. I've never done it that way. I don't know why that worked, but alright, you get the idea. You can use conditional formatting. I've used it before where I have a client, they have a model, and I want to show any place where I'm missing a number. I'll look at the number above it, and if it's more than the one below it, then I say I must be missing something, and I will highlight with a red. I've also done it where if there's a number that's below 0, for example, because they're going to run out of parts, then I make it red. Or if it's within, like there's a target quantity, so if it's under 20 but greater than 0, I make it like yellow, which means caution, you're getting low. It's just a real quick way for people to go down through and see where they're might have problems. Alright, the last area is text. And I use text quite a bit. But there's some formulas I use quite a bit, like left, which basically you're saying I want the leftmost however number of characters. So it's basically, in this example, I'm taking the left 5 characters. Here I'm taking the right 5 characters. And here I'm taking the characters in the middle, starting at 6 and going 5. So it starts on the 6th character and it goes 5 characters. Isn't that exciting? So now one of the things you can do, and we were talking about doing this at Case New Holland, is you can use filters. So you can say, I want to find, and this is an example of a simple filter which looks for the letter U. And it says, tell me where the U is, the first U, in this particular text. So in this case, for example, it finds the U at position 10. Here it didn't find any U's. So if we wanted to create one for nuts, for example, we could say, I want to find whatever's in this cell, G3, looking in this cell, starting at number 1. So it goes down, and of course the word nuts is actually embedded in here, here, and here. So it found it, right? And then what you can do is you can say, okay, well if you found it, in other words, if there's no error in that row, because otherwise it'd be a value because it couldn't find it, then I want you to put an X there. Otherwise don't put an X. See how that works?
Yeah.
So what you can do is you can say, if is error, you could say is, if, my Band-Aid, is error that, which means yes, then nothing, otherwise put an X there. If it is error, if an is error would be this.
Can I interrupt you because I'm going to have to go in a minute? Are you recording this?
Sure I am.
Okay, good.
Alright, so basically what I've done is I've taken the two formulas and I put them in, one in the other. See how I did that? All I did is I took the two formulas. So now I have a filter for the word nuts. But if I wanted a filter for in, I typed that and it found in here, right? Or if I wanted a filter for you, it found it there. And then you could sort on that column. So if, let's say you had a bunch of text and you're looking for everything that had the word, upset or whatever, then it would find all the references of those and then put an X in that column, or whatever you want to put in that column. You could put a 1 in there and then have it add them up if you wanted. If you want to string things together, you can also string them together. Here's an example of it. All you do is you use the ampersand. I think that's called ampersand, isn't it? And so that's how you do it. If you wanted to insert numbers in there, So here you put in the number 6, and down here you string them together, and then you use quotes with a space in the middle of them to put spaces in there. And then in this case I'm just referring to a number. So I can put in whatever I want here, and you can see, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Whatever I put in there is going to insert itself down here into the text. So you can adjust it. I use text functions more when I'm trying to do databases and I'm trying to extract information out. Alright? And then the very last thing I want to bring up is the use of comments. And if I have a formula somewhere, you can always right click and go insert comments, and you can put in this formula adds 1 to the max value of the values above. And then you can see a little red doohickey on the right upper corner. It'll tell you what that value is, what your note is for that particular cell. This is really helpful, and I suggest we do this when we do spreadsheets that are a little tricky, because that way if later on someone wants to use that spreadsheet, they have a little bit of insight as to what that formula is. Anybody else use comment fields?
I don't, but I know that you do, and I appreciate them when they come in on expense reports.
Right. I use them in expense reports when I have something that's partially cash and partially not cash. So that's what she's talking about. And then you guys know how to name ranges and stuff?
Yep.
Steve?
Yeah, I think so. Actually, it's been a while since I've done that. I never used it. I think that some of your spreadsheet does work when you get it, when I kind of play with it. I think you just kind of highlight it and right click on the zone, right?
Yeah, if you go into formulas and you go define name, you can, what I would do is I would take the range and I would define the name here and give it a unique name. And then now you can refer to it. And it's really nice, let's say you wanted to sort values, because once you create a name for it, it shows up here.
And it's really nice if you're working with a very, very big spreadsheet.
Yeah, because you don't have to keep highlighting it. Once you've highlighted it once, you have the ability to go into it and sort it. And
not only that, can you use a named range for a print range, or would you have to do a print range?
I think you have to do a print range. But what you can do is in a formula like VLOOKUP, if you use equal VLOOKUP, and let's say you want to look up this value, instead of doing the whole highlighting it, if that has a range name, I don't know, what is the name of this range? Oh, it's test range. So equal V, we can just go equal V lookup, this, and then we can start typing in the name of the range, and you can see it will pop up here. So if we just go tab, it fills it in. And then this is the column that we want to bring as our return. So let's say it's that. And then you want to have an exact match, so you put false.
Alright guys, I have to go. It looks like I'm going to miss macros.
That's okay.
So,
We'll go over another time, Robin.
you miss macros.
I'm sorry.
I love macros.
Well, you know how to do them, probably.
Well, yeah, for simple functions, I haven't done any macros that have been, like crazy, but simple macros, yeah.
Right. I haven't done any crazy ones either, so
Alright.
there you go.
Bottom line is I know that is a function, and I could always go back and figure it out.
I'm sure you can.
So what do you think I should do? Should I just put the phone down, or should I get off the call?
I'd
How much
I just get off the call for now. We're almost done anyway.
Huh?
We're almost done anyway, so
Okay, so do you disconnect me or do I just hang up?
you just hang up.
All right, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bill, I'll talk to you when I get back in and get settled.
Okay,
Okay, bye.
bye. All right, so basically to do the name ranges, you're just going in, you're highlighting the range you want named. You're going up here to define name, and you're giving it a name. You can also go into the name manager. You can see ones you already developed. So if you want to expand a name, you can go down and you can expand it manually. You know, just type in the new addresses. Any questions about that?
No, I never had used it, but I've been using some spreadsheets where you have, and it seemed kind of nice, so I was trying to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. So you just go into formulas, define name, and then do you guys know how to use the VLOOKUP?
I was gonna ask. Yeah, actually, I got something I wanted to let you know about that, which you probably already do know, but I was kind of using that in some of the, when I was making some of those Kanban summary lists,
Right.
and I found that you got to be careful that if the numbers are stored as text, they won't see them.
Right.
You
Yep.
can miss a lot of information if you don't convert everything. You don't see that error and change everything to a number where it's supposed to be a number.
Right. It has to be exactly the same. And I typically convert everything to text. But even if, like for example here, even if there's a space in here, like Bill with a space, it's different. Come on. VLOOKUP. Oh, yeah. If I do VLOOKUP and I'm looking up Bill, for example, see how I get a different answer because the first one has a space in it. If I take it off, now it recognizes it. So sometimes you have to do what's called a trim. Have you ever done a trim? Is it trim? It removes all the spacing except for the space between words.
Oh, okay.
So if you're, because I've had data come in before where they have extra spaces before or after. So by using trim and then just doing a copy paste value, it gets rid of all those extra spaces. So the main lookups that I use are VLOOKUP and HLOOKUP. So basically all VLOOKUP does is, let's say you've got a table, and this is our table here, and you want to find, well, let's say our table's down here. This is our table, let's pretend. And in our table, we're trying to find the value for Monday. Monday to, let's say Monday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we know that they're in this other list. So what we might do is we might create a lookup table here, or we give it a name just because it's a little easier to deal with. So we go formula define name, and we'll call it day lookup. Let's just call it that. And so these are my values that I want to look up. And we know they're in this big long table here. So, and we want to know what's in this first column, or second column. This is the first column, the second column. So we do a VLOOKUP, and it's VLOOKUP, and then the first is what we're trying to find. So in this case, it's whatever's in that column. And then the range we're looking up is, what the heck did we call it? Date. Yeah, here we go. Day lookup. Day lookup. And we want to look at column number 2, which is this column here. And we have to use false to get the exact lookup. Otherwise, if we don't use false, it will find the first thing that looks right. If it can't find it, it just says, oh, this looks close enough, and it uses that other value.
Isn't that column 4?
What?
Isn't that column 4, not 2?
No, it's
D.
this is column 1 and this is column 2.
Oh, because you made a separate table?
Yeah, I'm using this table down here. This is the table I'm using. I'm not using this up here anymore. So I made this table, and that table's called day lookup, right? And I said look up this value, and the thing with lookup tables is the first column has to be the criteria you're looking up. It can't be in another column. You know what I'm saying? It's got to be that first column. And then everything is referenced off that first column. So let's say I had some other data here. And we'll just do this. And let's say that's yes, no, yes, no. Right. So let's say that's my table now. So I'll go into my formula. I'll go into my name manager for day lookup, and I'll make it up to D, right? Now I'm sorry, E. Alright, so now it includes E too. So if I look at it,
When you reference a number, it doesn't really, it's not corresponding to A, B, C, etc. on top. It's corresponding to what that array is defined as.
right, it's relative to the first column, which is where you're looking up, what you're looking up.
I see.
So the column you're looking up always has to be in the leftmost column, or column 1.
Okay.
So this right here is me looking up from the second column, right?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to look up from the third column, I'll just copy it over. I anchored so I could do this. If I want to look at the third column, I would put a 3 here, and see now it's going to bring in that information.
Yeah, I understood that. I just thought that, because all the ones I've used, if you look up, column A was the first one, so I thought that A was always 1 and B was, I didn't understand the way that it worked.
No, it's all referenced to these columns, 1 through whatever.
That makes more sense.
And that's why in my spreadsheet for the a lot of my spreadsheets I'll actually put numbers on the top so I know what column we're on. Now, here's some things to note. One is, because here it only finds the first one in VLOOKUP. So notice how there's more than one Monday. It only found the first one, right? Because there's one right here and it didn't find that one. So VLOOKUP stops when it finds the first one. So if you've got multiple items in here, you can't use VLOOKUP because it's only really for unique values, right? The second thing is you got to use that false. If you don't, and let's say we make it true here. We get the same values. Oh no, we don't. Saturday. Yeah, if you use true, it assumes that these are sorted in alphabetical order. I don't know why, but true means it starts at the lowest and it goes up, and so it looks for Saturday, right? And it got up to Tuesday and it said, "Hey man, T is after S," and I was looking for an S. Saturday's an S. I didn't find it, so I'm going to have to guess what it is. And it guessed for yes, which is wrong, right? But you wouldn't know that. You would look at this and say, oh, it found it. But it didn't, because they weren't sorted correctly. Now if I go... What?
Why don't you actually use true?
Why would you? I never would. I would never use true.
Yeah.
But if you don't put anything in there, if you don't put that last column in, and we can do that, by the way, because it's not required. If you don't put the true or false in there, it assumes true. It defaults to true. So I had a project that I was off by like $1 million because it was defaulting to true. and it wasn't finding certain numbers, so it was guessing, and I didn't know. Because it will make you think everything looks peachy keno, but it's not. Alright, so that's why I'm warning you about that.
It's pretty important.
Now let's say you were looking up for a combination, like you wanted to find, let's say you're looking for the combination of Monday and holiday, let's say. And there were other Mondays that were, different. How would you do that? You have two different things you're looking up in your VLOOKUP statement. How might you do that? Any thoughts? Well, one way you could do it is you could build your formula with a string function. So you could say equal VLOOKUP F18 added to G18. I'm looking for the combination of Mon holiday, right?
Okay.
And I'm looking at day lookup 3. And then what you'd have to do, which by the way we want to put here, false. And then what you would do is you would create a column here. What you'd do is you'd create a column that would have the, here's how you do it. You'd create a column which takes these and adds them together into a reference code or a lookup code, and then what you would do for your formula is, and we're not going to go through the step of making this another range, we'll just make it implicit. But you can look up G plus H, G and H. And I'm looking up column. There's nothing to look up. Well, I'll just look up one. No. Damn it.
Can't you get rid of that G, and? You're not looking at just column 3?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm using my reference as these two things combined. And I'm looking in these. F28. Holiday. Okay, let's try this. Tuesday. 2. The point is, what you can do is you can key off of multiple columns by adding them together with string variables. That's all I'm saying. We don't have to get into it more than that. It does work. But I use that's how I use VLOOKUP. I usually don't do anything fancy like that. Usually I'm looking up a specific value in a specific column. Alright? I actually did use it, and here's the Wichita model file that we were looking at earlier. Yeah. See, I use these things all the time. This is the stations that we came up with. So this is boom station, and then this column's 1. So I made a lookup code called ls boom 1. Basically, I just took the columns from before, right? And I combined them, and then I made this reference number. And then over here, I said, okay, I'm going to do a lookup code, and I want to look up ls boom plus the station number. So see how I did it? I did those two. I use this lookup code. This was the leftmost column here, and I want to look in the second column. So that's what I did. I look at this stuff, and I look at this column, and I brought it over here. So ls boom 1, and it found ls boom 1, which was this, and it brought that number over here. So actually right here. So I use these formulas, but again, unless you have a specific reason, the point is that you can use them to look at multiple criteria in a lookup table. All right. And then macros. Have either used macros before?
I never have. I'd like to learn
Yeah, so essentially all a macro is it's a way for you to record keystrokes. Let me see if I can even find the gosh darn thing. Macros. Here we go. So we have a macro. So let's say you want to create a macro that takes what would be a good macro to do?
You have different headings than I do. I don't have a developer tab. Mine's under view. Hey, you got that?
Yeah, you have to turn on that. You have to actually go into Excel options, I think. And
How do you go into Excel options?
Customize?
Oh.
customize, resources, advanced, formulas. You don't have the developer tab on yours?
No.
Oh. Analysis. Do you have the tool packs on? If you go into add-ins, do you have the tool packs?
No, I'll add those in.
It might be under the tool packs.
Okay.
I think it's under the tool pack VBA. That's Visual Basic, which is what the macros run off of. They use Visual Basic.
I'll put both of them now, tool packs and maybe conditional sum wizard.
The
I'll
big-
load some of those in, maybe it'll fix the problems.
Basically, all you do with it is you come up. Let's say you have something you have to do repetitively, right? Like maybe you. Well, let's just show you how to make a macro first, and then we can talk about how you might use it. But if there's something you had to do repetitively, let's say you had to highlight this range, you had to copy it down here, and then you had to print it, right? Like maybe you're taking data and you're copying into this model and you're doing a calculation and then you're printing. What you do is you'd start by, you start the macro. So you go into macros and you're going to make a new macro. You go up to record macro and you give it a name. So we'll just call it copy macro. And we'll give it a name, Control X. Okay? And you can make it a macro that's stored in this workbook, or you can put it in other workbooks. I just defaulted to this workbook. And you hit OK. And so as of now, it's recording the macro. So when I do a macro, I first start by coming down and clicking on the tab, because there's a chance when you run it, you're not going to be on this tab. So I click on the tab, and again what we're going to do is copy and paste. So we take this, highlight it, right click, just like you would normally, do a copy, come over here, I'm going to do a paste special value, and then I'm going to come up, let's say I'm going to do a F9 maybe I'm doing a recalc, which I just did, and now I come up here, go print, selection, preview, and close. And that's, let's say, my macro. I would have it actually print or something. And then when I'm done with my macro, I go stop recording, and now my macro's done. So now if I hit Control X, you see what it did? It actually did all those steps for me. So if I'm over here in Math, I hit Control X, it went in, it copied it, and it brought up the print preview. And then let's say I wanted to print at this point, I could just print, right? So essentially what macros do is they create a Visual Basic they create a Visual Basic program that duplicates what you just tried to do manually. And let's see if I can find the actual examples. We don't need that. Look up. What you can do then is you can go into your macro and you can edit it. And I haven't used it in this particular version, so
I went to view macros and then you hit.
here it
flip
is.
to-
Yeah, copy macro. Oh, that runs it. We don't want that. Edit. And so here's the macro. So essentially the macro goes to the pivot sheets, it selects this range, it selects, does a copy, it selects K19, it does a paste special, it does a copy paste special, then it calculates, and then it goes to the printer and it does a preview, and then it's done. So the point of this is if there's something, let's say you're running a program and you have to take the results of it, you have to copy it over somewhere, do a recalc, and then you want to put it into a report. You can use macros to automate those keystrokes. You know what I mean? And you can do it for little mundane things too. Like you can say, take whatever the cell that I'm at and copy and go down one and paste to the cell below it. So you can use it to help you semi-automate some of your data entry. I've used this before where I have a client where they they fill in certain data and then they want to take those results and they put them into a report. So rather than have them go through the steps manually each time, I just create a simple macro.
Even this formula, so you just like highlight a range, hit the hotkey, and it'll give you some kind of a metric you're looking for.
Say it again.
You like program it so you can like highlight a range that'll say you want to quickly do the average of a range. You just highlight the range, hit a hotkey, and it'll tell you the average, stuff like that.
Yeah, you could do that. Of course, it already does that here automatically, but
just a generic example. But
yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Or, for example, let's say you want to do a Monte Carlo analysis. So you wanted to generate random numbers, take the result, generate new random numbers, take the result, keep taking those results and copy them into a different part of the spreadsheet, and then take all the results and average them, for example. You could do that with a macro. You can create a loop and have it do like 50 iterations of that, and then when you're done, take you to the summary page to show you the averages. So you can do stuff like that. Alright? Alright, that's all I have for now. You guys have any questions or comments or fears or...
What was that?
I don't know, I just throwing things out now.
Thought you told me to go ahead and get a beer.
Get a beer?
Yeah, that's what I heard anyhow.
Does that help?
Be helpful with the little tricks.
Yeah, so like Robin said, and I said earlier, a lot of it is just about, trying out new things. Like, I don't constantly look for new things to try just for the sake of it, but if there's any time I'm doing something different, and I know, boy, if I could just do it easier then I'll kind of go in and take a look at the tools I have, and sometimes I'll find a new one I didn't know existed. So it would be nice if we had a way of sharing Excel tricks and tips and things as we went forward. I'm not sure the way to do that though. Probably the easiest way would be if we did have like a regular meeting where people would take the best thing they learned from that period of time, like maybe they were working with a client, the client showed them how to do something, then, or they were working on a project and they got into some part of Excel that they hadn't used before, then we could share stuff like that. But I think out of all the programs we use, Excel probably is this is by far the bread and butter tool we have. This is the one we use all the time. Word is great and all that, and PowerPoint's great, but when we do analyses and things, it's really a lot of it's Excel. So the better we can learn how to use it, the better for us, I think.
But, I remember you told me this before, and I must be doing one little part of it wrong. When you have a really big spreadsheet like the one we're working on with Wichita with thousands of lines,
Yeah.
what was the quick method of highlighting from like line 1 down to line 65,000 without holding scroll down for 5 minutes? What was that method?
If you press and let go of the end key, you can't hold it down though.
Okay.
You just press it once and let go, and then you hit the down arrow.
Okay.
It will take you to the next. If you're on a blank, it will take you to the first cell with any information in it. And if you're in a cell with information in it, it will take you to the end of that until it comes up with a blank.
Okay.
So you use the end button and use the up, down. You can also use it for right or left.
Now, what if you wanted, as you were doing that, you wanted to highlight all those cells? How would you do that? Sure.
Highlight all the blank cells.
No, all the cells with values. Say from line from 1 down to 65,000, you have information you want to copy into another spreadsheet.
Oh, to do that, you hit the shift. If you hold down the shift button, it allows you to anchor the corner that you're in.
Okay.
So, like right now, I'm holding down the shift button. If I go down and to the right, it anchors that to that cell I was in.
Okay.
And if I go up and to the right, it anchors. So if I want to highlight this range and I'm in the upper left corner, I can just hold down the shift button and then do the end down and do end right. You can see how it stopped when I got to the blank row. As soon as you get to a blank row. But like for this one, if I go end down and end to the right, because it's all filled in, it's going to give me the whole range,
I was playing with it yesterday. I was like holding down shift and all different arrows, the mouse button. I couldn't figure it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've always used the control key in the arrows, and I'd get the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
But I wouldn't have to push end.
You're right, the control key works too. That's even better.
Yeah. And then if I want to highlight it when I'm going somewhere, I just hit control shift, which they're right on top of each other. And then
Nice. I didn't know you could do that.
That works too.
That works better. Yay. It's better.
Okay, good.
So-
It'll save me about 20 minutes of scrolling in the bill of materials for Wichita.
So control is just like end, except you hold it down.
Yeah, it's nice and close to you, so you're not going to reach around.
What does the alt key do? Oh, that's weird.
I know if you're in a cell and you hold the alt key down, like if you're typing, and you hit alt enter, it'll do a return line without exiting out of that cell, so you don't have to put in all your spaces.
Say it again if you hit a what?
Click on B1. Now, double click on it in the toolbar. Or if your cursor blinking where, yeah, there you go. In between, put your cursor right at the end of pivot. Now, hit alt and enter. Now, go ahead and click at, on row 1,
That's weird.
You have a space there, but what that does is it allows you to, so like sometimes you want your text headings to be, it's a return in your typing format.
How'd you put a return in? You hit Alt, what?
Alt return.
I've been trying to do that for years. I've been trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So Alt return, and then I can put in more text, and then now it's on a different row.
Yeah.
That is sweet.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to remember that one.
They use it, they'll line it up right.
Yeah, there's a space there with the pivot. I think there's a space in front of tables.
Okay.
That's why it's not right justified or left justified.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And then it looks like if you hit the Alt key while you're in a cell, it gives you a pop-up for selecting one or the other. Like I could hit Dave and then it switches it over.
That's pretty cool.
If so, it tries to...
Is that chart a table? Or
No.
Is that...
It's just a regular... But look, this is assuming, oh, you must want a... It's giving me other values that are in that row. It's like a...
I've never seen that before. That must be new for this. You're hitting Alt when you're doing that?
I'm hitting Alt and then I'm hitting the up or down key.
Okay.
It must be... Because you know when you do an automatic, like if you go N, it assumes you want no.
Yeah.
Well, let's say you have a no, but you also have a never, and you also have a nothing. Well, if you hit an N, you're not going to get anything, right? But if you hit Alt down, it gives you all the options. That's sweet. Wow. So Control will give you the ends, and Alt will give you a pull down with options. And it will also, if you're in the text, it will let you do a hard return. Sweet. And then Shift is an anchor. Shift's always an anchor.
I'm hitting Alt, it's not doing it for me. Are you holding something else down with Alt?
To get
No.
the hard return? Or to get the pop-up list?
Take a list.
Do you have a list? You have a list already?
Yeah, I'm looking at your same spreadsheet you got open.
All right, and you press the Alt down and you hit the down arrow. You got to hold the Alt down.
Actually, I was selecting a range. That's what the problem was.
Yeah, and then once you press it down, you let go of the Alt, and then you can scroll down onto the list. And until you press the Alt again, or until you press Escape, that list stays there.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's sweet, man. I didn't know you could do that. Sweet. Anything else? But we're just finding out all kinds of things. Any other quick keys? Like I've always used...
Buttons, see what happens.
Yeah, let's just start pressing buttons.
I have a list that will do like timestamps and stuff like that. There's some other hotkeys that are just natural, but I don't remember. The only one I remember, I don't remember what it was. I think it was Control and maybe the colon key. Yeah, that'll give you your date. And there was another Control and key, and it would give you the time. Which I took my laptop out on the floor once or twice to do time studies that way, but I don't remember.
No.
So you're just on a blank cell somewhere, and you hit Control colon semicolon. You'll get your date. Today's date will pop in there. And there's another hotkey, but I forget what it is for time. I'm pushing all these buttons. I'm not getting it.
I think the one right next to the apostrophe one, but it gives you like a 39, 42, whatever that is.
Apostrophe.
Oh, here we go. Here are a bunch of shortcut keys. Control Shift. Here's Control 1, Control 2, Control 2 is bold.
Alright, let me go back to that.
Control A, Control B.
Oh yeah, there's those. Those control keys will work, like the bold and the italicize. And of course cut and paste, they work in Word and everything.
And then they have Control arrow, Shift arrow. Control Shift arrow extends the selection of cells to the last non-blank cell in the same column. Backspace deletes one character. Yeah. Edit, deleting, and enter, escape, home. You can use Shift Spacebar to select an entire row. Do you know that? So Shift Spacebar is the entire row. Holy crud!
That's pretty nice.
Oh my gosh! I wonder if you hit. So, yeah. So if you hit Shift Spacebar and then you just scroll down, it will select rows. Well, that's great because I usually have to go over here and then highlight it that way. But you can just hit the space bar. Man, we got to publish these things. Holy cow!
What's the title of that? I think I got that. I'm gonna print it out. Is it the Excel shortcut and function keys at the top of the list?
Yep. I'm gonna print it out too. Now that I have my printer icon at the top. Oh yeah, here's the time here. It's Control Shift. Oh, applies the time format. Control Shift ampersand. I don't know if it puts the time in. Control Shift. No.
I just use the properties. I think Steve was saying actually using the time.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, yeah, exactly. It was something real simple.
Applies the current date. Yeah. Control plus. There is an applying the current date, which means, oh, here we go. Enters the current time. Control Shift plus colon. Control Shift colon.
Yeah, there you go.
Holy crud! That is so great. Hey, this was all worth it to me, man. Just find these shortcut keys. Nice. Alright, anything else? Anybody have anything else?
I don't think so. What did you go to? Help menus and type in shortcut keys?
Yeah, I looked up Excel shortcut keys. I put in keyboard shortcuts Excel, and it brought up Excel shortcut and function keys. And it's got everything, man. No, that would be part of your Excel. When you did your, you want to see? No, that would be part of when you install in Excel. There should be a toolkit. If you go under Excel options and you go under add-ins, if you go under add-ins, how do you get into what? Go into the big round symbol. Under the bottom there's Excel options. You see that? And then go into add-ins. And there'll be an add-in probably inactive called Analysis Tool Pack VBA. Is there? Is it inactive? Yeah, you want to activate it. Like I would activate the Analysis Tool Pack and the Analysis Tool Pack VBA. And then you should be able to do it without the disk. If you need the disk, then let me know, and next time I see you, I'll give you the disk. Do you? Yeah. Yeah, I do too. I've never used it. You could use it if you think there's the ones I don't have the financial symbol one, the headers or footers. There's like some document inspection things I don't have. Hidden worksheets I don't. Internet Assistant VBA I do not have. I don't have person name, smart tags. Basically the only thing I have are there's an Acrobat one. There's an analysis toolpack, analysis toolpack VBA. I have a lookup wizard. I have a solver add-in. I have the MindJet one, which you wouldn't have, and I have a WinZip one, which you should have. I'm not sure if you have it or not, Chad, the WinZip one. You there, Chad? Oh. And so can you see the macros now? They're probably under the developer tab. I don't know. Because I didn't have the developer tab either when I first started, and I'm like, where the heck I need that tab? And so I ended up having to get it to set it up. That sounds good. Yeah, that's great. Oh, yeah, they're different. But yeah, now that the thing with Access is it was always able to handle large gobs of data, and now Excel has the ability to access up to 1 million lines of data. That makes it less of an issue. But databases are still built around the speed of sorting and querying data in a relational way, whereas Excel still is kind of limited. Excel is more about using and manipulating data. Access is more about taking data and showing it in various ways, integrating it. So, I'm not sure where you set up the developer tab, but, oh yeah, here it is. If you go to Popular under Excel Options, there's one that says Show Developer Tab in the ribbon. And so if you don't have it checked, you can't see it. Yeah, you go to the Microsoft button to the Excel options like you were before, and the very top, there's different places you can go. But the very top one is Popular, Excel options, and the third thing down from the top, it says Top Options for Working with Excel. It says Show Developer Tab in the ribbon, and it must default to not being checked because most people don't use it. But we do, because we're power users, man. and this is all being recorded. So, gotta stop. We must stop.